specific hukum is based on that hadith, right? If it is, then scholars will be usually much stricter in terms of looking for the authenticity of the hadith. Some scholars of hadith say anything which is weak cannot be used in any way whatsoever, right? This is another opinion which some scholars have. Some modern scholars of hadith have considered this hadith to be authentic, either in and of itself or due to other chains of narration, as we said, but this is not the opinion of the majority of scholars of hadith, especially the early scholars of hadith. They considered the only authentic chain of narration in relation to this hadith is mursal. And mursal means that there is somebody in the chain missing. And in this case, it goes from a tabi'i, it goes from a follower of the Sahaba to the Prophet ﷺ directly. The person, and this is in Imam Malik's collection in Muwatta, he doesn't mention who's the Sahabi that said these words. Right? He doesn't mention who's the Sahabi that said these words, and that makes it weak, and that is something which affects the authenticity of the hadith and how we would utilize it. In this chain of narration, you can see the Sahabi's name is mentioned, but in the chain of narration is one of the tabi'in, his name is Qurra, and there is some issue with his narrations. Yeah? So you can see the science of hadith is very, very precise, and through this we've been able to protect the sunnah. So we will highlight in those ahadith that we come to in this collection where there is some talk about its authenticity. One of the issues in the science of hadith is that different scholars and different muhaddithin has this word hasan. Hasan we understand to be good, but many cases where Imam at-Tirmidhi uses the word hasan, he doesn't mean it's authentic. If he meant it was authentic and acceptable, he says hasan sahih, for example, right? And then you may find in different transcripts of Imam at-Tirmidhi's books, terminology used in different ways, depending on the person who transcribed that book and so on and so forth. So this is maybe a bit too detailed or deep for our discussion today. But the point here is that there is some issue with the authenticity in this hadith, but the concept in the hadith is correct. It's an Islamically correct concept, which is that to perfect your Islam, you must keep yourself busy with that which is important, that which is good, that which is beneficial, and you stay away from that which is going to be considered a waste of your time and none of your business. Yes, this is a valid principle in Islam. So we will talk about this principle, inshallah. Introduction. Ibn Rajab mentions that this hadith is the foundation of manners, behavior, and etiquette in Islam. Right? Again, this is one of those statements which is very comprehensive and gives a key principle that you can use and apply in many different aspects and many different ways in Islam. This hadith mentions that a believer should be concerned with matters that are beneficial in this life and the hereafter. He should not be concerned with matters that are of no benefit, such as meddling in the affairs of others. Here the Prophet ﷺ recommended a way to avoid a major social ill that harms society. This becomes more and more relevant topic because we live in the world of social media. So now everyone and everybody can comment about everything and everybody else's business, right? And you can get exposed or expose others in a matter of an instant. People take pictures and videos and they send messages, and we are constantly looking for scandals about celebrities, about politicians, about this one, about that one. This is not the Islamic way, actually, right? Life is too short, time is too precious for you to waste even few moments reading about that nonsense, or even worse, being the one who's writing it or speaking about the others, right? As if everything in your life is perfect. You've already accomplished all things that need to be accomplished. You are fulfilling everything perfectly. Therefore, you said, I have extra time and free time. Let me go and look into the lives of everybody else. This is not the case, right? How many of us can say we're fulfilling all our obligations? We're fulfilling all the sunan. We are stayed away from all the muharramat. We've done everything we can for the ummah and for our family and for the other Muslims. Therefore, now we're going to spend our time and our energy on nonsense, meddling into the business and affairs of others. Yeah? So there's a very important principle here. Number one, the hadith focuses on how do we complete and perfect our Islam. Right? Even the Prophet ﷺ, sometimes when talking about the person who converts to Islam, He said the one who perfected their Islam, made their Islam excellent. Meaning just becoming a Muslim or being a Muslim doesn't mean you are necessarily at the level you need to be. Right? And we understand that. Our Iman increases and decreases. Our Islam can be improved. How is it improved? Number one, through knowledge. We have to have knowledge to know how to live correctly. Number two, by acting upon that knowledge. How many of us are fulfilling and acting upon everything that we know? We've attended hundreds of classes. Are we fulfilling all the things we learned in those classes? Not necessarily. So all of that needs our time, our energy, our focus, and we have to continuously improve. Because we will never reach perfection actually, but we are always trying to inch closer and closer to the level and example set by the Prophet ﷺ and his companions. And then the second half of the hadith says, leaving alone that which does not concern you. How do we know what it is that concerns us and what it is that doesn't concern us? Does it mean I go back to my whims and desires? If I like this thing, then it's good. If I don't like it, then it doesn't concern me anymore? No, no, no. Because some Muslims, they want to focus on a hadith that say, as we mentioned previously, the importance of the heart, listen to your heart, follow your heart if there are doubtful matters. But in last week's hadith, or last session's hadith, when was that? A couple of weeks ago, or was it last week? Huh? Previous, right? 2 weeks ago. So when we went through that hadith, we talked about not just any kind of heart is the heart that you can rely on. It needs to be a pure heart. It needs to be someone who has knowledge. It needs to be someone who is acting upon that knowledge. Otherwise, you don't just say, I followed my heart, and therefore for sure my heart guided me in the right direction. No. So it's within the confines and the guidelines of the Sharia, of the religion of Islam, that we will find what is it that we should be busying ourselves with, and what is it that we should consider not any concern of ours. Yeah? Let's go into it a little bit deeper, inshallah. From the lessons here, lesson 1 or A, Dr. Jamal brings concern for the beneficial matters. This hadith states that a believer should avoid things that are of no concern to him. Specifically, these things are actions that have no benefit in this life or in the hereafter. In justifying this point, Imam Ibn al-Arabi, Imam Ibn al-Arabi is a great Maliki scholar. It says here he passed away in the year 543 after the Hijrah. This is not the same person as Imam Ibn Arabi, excuse me. There's Ibn al-Arabi, he's a faqih, and there's Ibn Arabi, he's the Sufi deviant, right? Who's almost worshipped by some extremist Sufis, and they consider him one of their sort of godfathers of their way. Al-Imam Ibn al-Arabi rahimahullah said, a person is not able to fulfill all of the necessary matters that he must take care of. Why then should he get into the unnecessary extra matters that are of no real concern to him? This is the bottom line. You haven't fulfilled everything that you need to. How come you will spend time on something which is unnecessary? Wasting your time when you still haven't been able to fulfill all the obligations and all of the necessary things that need to be done by good Muslims. From another viewpoint, the perfection of Iman is concerned with matters that are beneficial in this life and the hereafter. This is emphasized by another hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, "Ihris ala ma yanfa'uk, wasta'in billah, wala ta'jaz." The Prophet ﷺ said, be keen with that which is beneficial for you. There's something, it's good for you, there's good in it for you, whether it's for this life or the hereafter, but specifically, obviously, for your deen and the hereafter, then be very keen to pursue it and to go after it and seek help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because only with His help will you be able to succeed, and don't give up. Here they translated it, and do not be reckless. This is not an accurate translation. Al-ajiz is the inability to do something, and that inability can be even a psychological inability, such as perfectionism, procrastination, laziness, so on and so forth. Right? So this concept of ajiz, don't give up. Right? Don't feel that I cannot do it. Seek Allah's help, try your best, and if you cannot do it perfectly, still do it partially. Do as much as you can. Okay, now here they jump into that concept that we just talked about. If we're supposed to spend our time on what's important, then what is it that's most important? How do we know where to invest our time, and this is what should be guiding us in our time management. An important question related to this hadith is regarding the things that a true believer should be concerned with. Because if you're saying, don't waste your time with these things that are not your concern, what is it the things that we should be concerned with? Addressing this issue will enable us to practice this hadith in the right manner. To address this matter, a Muslim should concern himself with the following. Number one, fulfillment of the wajibat in Islam. Right? This is an important concept for Muslims because sometimes people, they want to be religious, but due to lack of knowledge, they don't know how to prioritize. So they may invest time and energy into something which is less important at the expense of something which is more important. For example, we may see many Muslims, they come for Taraweeh prayer. They're very committed in Taraweeh prayer, but they're lacking even in Ramadan or outside of Ramadan in their 5 daily prayers. This is due to ignorance. How can you emphasize the thing which is voluntary over the thing which is obligatory? The most important thing is the thing which is obligatory. The Prophet ﷺ informed us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, my slave will not get closer to me with anything more beloved to me than those things which are obligations. That's why Allah made them obligations. He loves those things the most. The 5 pillars of Islam are the basics that everyone has to focus on and establish in their life before the voluntary actions are focused on. And then the Prophet ﷺ said that the person would continue getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through what? Through the voluntary actions. Until you would reach the point that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves you so much that He answers all your prayers, He protects you whenever you seek protection, so on and so forth. So, of course, having the knowledge and learning what are the obligations is step one, and then step two, practicing those and practicing them completely and correctly. Right? When we talk about the 5 daily prayers, it means doing them on time. It means doing them with all the inward and outward aspects being done correctly, following the Prophet ﷺ's way, and so on. So here they say, fulfillment of the wajibat in Islam, one needs to perform the religious obligations as much as they are able to. These wajibat are broken down into 2 subcategories, fard ayn and fard kifaya. What's the difference between this? Anyone can give me a definition? What's fard ayn mean? In Malay you will say usually fardu ayn, right? What does it mean? What's the difference though between fardu ayn and fardu kifaya? Both are obligation, both are wajib. What's the difference? One is for the individual. Fardu ayn means every individual must do it. Fard kifaya means it's a communal obligation. It's an obligation on the community. Some people from the community must do it on behalf of the community. Yep. So it says here, fard ayn, this is an individual obligation which is incumbent upon every Muslim. These include acts of worship such as prayer, fasting, zakat. Right? You can see here the examples given are the 5 pillars of Islam. Can somebody be exempt from some of these? Yes. Does everybody have to pay zakat? No. If you don't meet the requirements, does everyone have to fast? Are there some people who are exempt from fasting? Yes. People can be exempt from fasting. They would pay the fidya, right? They would pay the ransom instead and so on. But prayer is the one that nobody gets excused from. As long as they are sane and conscious and so on, then the person must be performing their prayer. Fardu kifaya, this is the obligation incumbent on every community. If a fard kifaya is not performed in a respective community, then the burden of sin is placed on each member of that community. As such, these actions must not be neglected and should also be matters of concern to every Muslim. 2 typical examples of this are Salatul Janaza and the Adhan. Right? Does every single Muslim in a community have to go and attend the Janazah prayer? No. It would not necessarily be possible. But some Muslims must do the funeral rites for their brother or sister who has passed away. Right? Washing the body, praying on the Muslim, burying them properly, and so on. Right? If it wasn't done, then the sin falls on the entire community for not establishing that. The adhan, the call for prayer, needs to be made. As we know, the Prophet ﷺ and Sahaba would wait to see if the call for prayer would be made in a community to recognize whether they are Muslim or not. This is one of those clear apparent signs and symbols of Islam in a society. Another important example is to work for the betterment of the community. Each individual has an important role to contribute towards the community with their own profession, their own expertise, and their talent. Right? So for example, if the society has no scholars, the burden will be on the entire community and society. If the society has no doctors, if the society has no teachers and educators, this is a problem. So the community and the society has needs. Those needs need to be fulfilled. Not every single individual in the community has to become a scholar or has to be a doctor, but we need to have those basic services and functions within our community, within our society. And this is an important reminder. Why? Because many Muslim countries and communities today are extremely dependent on others. So does the Muslim world manufacture and produce most of what they consume and what they utilize in their life? No. We just buy from the Chinese, or we buy from the US, or we buy from others because we don't have that capability and capacity. This is a weakness. This is not something to be accepted. You know, alhamdulillah, Malaysia produces cars, but no other Muslim country in the world produces automobiles, for example, right? Weapons, we all buy our weapons from those who don't think so favorably of us and our religion as nations, and so on and so forth. So this is a problem that the entire ummah is responsible for. How do we ensure that we are more self-sufficient and that we are more capable as a community and as a ummah? Muslims have sufficient matters to be concerned with to such an extent that one may not have enough time to deal with all of them. This relates to the question of time management. We only need to be involved in matters that are of concern to us. But how many of us think big enough to have the concern about what I just talked about now? Many of us, we don't think beyond our own little home. That's it. My family wants a new car. I need to buy them a new car. My family wants some exotic dessert for after dinner tonight. I'm going to take them and spend a lot of money on that. That's it. We don't think beyond what does the ummah need. Who's doing planning for us and for our future and for our youth and for the next generations? How many of us have a hem, have a concern, have an enthusiasm about how can I help the ummah, how can I make the world better? If you start to think about that, you will find there's no time to waste. There's no way you can invest your energy into anything else, trivial matters that true believers should not be wasting their time with. Number two, so number one was fulfillment of the wajibat in Islam, right? This is what we should be focusing on. Number two would then be obviously avoiding the opposite, avoiding the haram, those things which are forbidden. This principle and the one before it were already discussed in hadith number 9, right? We went into that in quite some detail. Number three, performing the mandub. What does this word mandub mean? Recommended, yeah? Mandub is another Arabic word to mean the sunnah, the voluntary action, that which is less than wajib, right? It's a good deed. If you do it, you get rewarded by Allah. If you don't do it, what happens? You get sin? No, no sin. Only voluntary and recommended action. After performance of the obligations, it is encouraged for the Muslim to do the preferable acts as much as he is able to do. However, this is with less vigilance than the obligations. After this, he should also do his best to avoid all that is makruh, those things which are disliked. Makruh means it's not haram. There's no sin if you do such an act, but you will get a reward from Allah if you don't do it. Number four, enjoining the good and forbidding the evil. This is again one of those kind of communal obligations. Every individual should be participating in some way by trying to improve the society, by trying to stop the ills and the vices and the social evils that are afflicting our people. This is the act of protecting the community from falling into error and sin. This also functions in self-accountability for the community and encourages ihsan, right? Doing things in an excellent way, in the best way possible. Allah says in the Quran, He quotes here, "It is Allah who created death and life that He may try you, which of you is best in deeds, and He is the Almighty, the oft forgiving." So the reality is humans, they love to compete, right? We always love to have more. We always love to be better. We always love to be bigger, stronger, faster, more beautiful, whatever it is. By our nature, we are in a competition with each other, right? We always try to look at what others have. What are my friends having? What are my family members having? Do I have more? Do I have better? And there's a kind of jealousy and envy that exists there amongst humans. Well, the reality is the believer will take this desire to compete and direct it towards what? Towards the hereafter. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَفِي ذَلِكَ فَلْيَتَنَافَسِ الْمُتَنَافِسُونَ. If you're really going to compete, compete about that, what Allah has promised in the hereafter. And that only comes through what? Comes through sincerity, comes through concealing your good deeds, doing them purely for Allah, not showing off. It comes in doing things in an excellent way, remaining committed and patient throughout the trials and tribulations of this life. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said here, we created this life as a test to see which of them will be best. How can you be best? It means by being most sincere and by following the Prophet ﷺ's way as close as possible. Right? Whoever is better is the one that is more sincere and more close in their adherence to the way that was revealed by Allah through Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Regarding ihsan, hadith number 17 of this collection, we haven't come to that hadith yet. Verily Allah has prescribed ihsan in all things. So the Prophet ﷺ said, when you do something, do it with ihsan. And ihsan, we remember the definition, we came to it in a previous hadith, to worship Allah as if you can see Allah. But even though you don't see Him, you know that He sees you at all times. So how would you live your life if you could see Allah? Would you ever commit a sin? Would you ever slack off? Would you ever waste time? Would you ever not do your obligations? No, you would be living in a very peak state, an excellent state, performing your best all the time, because you knew that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching you. Well, the believer should live that way and is supposed to live that way. If you have some of the Sahaba saying, if the veil was lifted now, and I could see the paradise and the hellfire and everything related to the hereafter, I wouldn't change anything in my life. It means what? He's already trying 110%. He cannot give any more. He's trying as hard as he can, as if he can see them already. Imagine what level you are living in. For many of us, even they make movies or shows about it sometimes. Somebody is told suddenly, you only have short time to live. Suddenly, what do? They change their life 180 degrees. They say, oh no, I only have 1 day left, only 1 week left. Oh, I just realized I've been wasting all my time. I should have spent time with the people I love. I should have been doing good things. I should get forgiveness for all these things I did wrong. I should try to experience some good things in life, because I was just wasting all my life in work or wasting all my life with trivial matters and so on and so forth, and not focusing on the real thing. And this is non-Muslims in that scenario. For the Muslim, we realize if I'm going to face Allah tomorrow, if I know I have only 24 hours left, many things I better rectify. Give more charity, ask Allah for forgiveness, do good deeds, get forgiveness from the people who I've wronged in this life, try to rectify my affairs with them, my parents, my children, this, that. Suddenly the person will have a million things they will be concerned with. Those are the things you should have been concerned with all along. Every day, every moment. So if a person lives with ihsan, they live a different kind of life. And the problem is, ihsan is lacking now in most of our organizations and our lives. And you can see it in the way people usually do what? Do their job, the way they work. We don't care about fulfilling our duties. We don't care about cheating the company or the agency or whatever it is that we work for. We're not precise about the time. We're not precise about doing the tasks. We do things half-baked. We don't care the quality. Right? The customer is there, or the citizen is there, and the government employee doesn't care how long they have to wait, doesn't care how bad the service is. What is this? And of course, it's like a cancer. It's like a disease. It spreads. And the person who does it starts to say, well, that's what everybody else does. They rationalize and justify. When I go, I have to wait in line. This is how I'm treated as well. So I treat the other people the same way. The people above me do that, so then I do it to the people below me, and so on and so forth. What is this? This is not the way. It's a vicious cycle. Unless some people step up and break it and say, no, I don't care, even if everyone around me is lazy, even if everyone around me is cheating, even if everyone around me is lying, even if everyone around me is not putting their best effort, I'm not going to be that person. I need to do my best because I am contributing and I am accountable for what I am doing. So the Prophet ﷺ said, verily Allah has prescribed ihsan in all things. Thus if you kill, kill well. And if you slaughter, slaughter well. So he's talking even in the sacrificing of the animal, there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. The Prophet ﷺ saw the man, he was sharpening his knife in front of the animal. He said, what are you doing? You want to kill him twice? You are terrifying him. There's a kind way and a right way to do it. You don't just say it's an animal, doesn't matter. If the knife is dull or not, doesn't matter. No. So the Prophet ﷺ went on and said, let each one of you sharpen his blade and let him spare suffering to the animal he slaughters. There's a correct way to do it. So we don't need now the Westerners to come and say, hey, there are animal rights. Hey, we are ethical people, so we will not buy from this slaughterhouse because they abuse the animals and they don't care if the machine cut the neck of the chicken properly or not. They just let the animal flop around and suffer and die a slow and horrible, awful death. What is this? This cannot happen in any Muslim slaughterhouse because the Muslim does things in an excellent way. Even in something like this, there is nothing too small or too big, except that there is a correct way to do it, a best way to do it, and the Muslim is always looking for the best way. Now you can see all those gurus in business and in manufacturing and in all these industries, they're all looking for what? How to improve efficiency, how to improve time management, how to do just-in-time manufacturing, how to do all these kind of concepts are very Islamic. We already have it as a part of our religion and our way of life and our motto by which we should be living, the slogan by which we should be living our life. We didn't need any of them to come and say, oh, we discovered this new thing. This is our way from 1,400 years ago. But are we implementing that in our governments, in our societies, in our companies, in our personal lives? So that when non-Muslims look at us, they say, wow, Muslims are the example. Right? They don't say, oh, Japan is the example. Oh, Germany is the example. Oh, but that's what's happened today. Why? Because Muslims have gone far away from these teachings. We are not implementing them. Even if we nod our head, yes, we understand what these mean, but are we really practicing that in our life? May Allah help us to do so. Number 5, concern for the welfare of the ummah. These are the things we should be what? Making ourselves busy with. These are the things that we really need to focus on. This is what the deen is telling us should be your priorities. If you fulfilled all your obligations and you stayed away from all the haram and you're enjoining the good and forbidding the evil and living your life and encouraging others to live their life with excellence, then what about the welfare of the rest of the ummah? See this long list? When we have time to finish it, we need multiple lifetimes, we will not be able to finish it. Right? How then we have time for gossiping on WhatsApp and Facebook and looking at people's scandalous pictures and commenting on it, and what a waste of life. This is something disgusting that a Muslim should not even get close to, much less be the one who's promoting it or the one who's authoring it. Number 5, concern for the welfare of the ummah. This is another matter of concern, often neglected and severely lacking amongst the Muslims. We need to think of further improving the Muslim situation and not just be content with the current state. This applies whether we are worshippers, teachers, professionals, students, etc. We need to remind ourselves that we are the slaves of Allah only. Hence, we should not be enslaved by current methods or routines of doing things. We need to think creatively to improve our situation in a manner not contradictory to the Sharia. Dr. Jamal is an expert on creative thinking. He has books on this topic. So he's very much passionate about this and how can we engage these methodologies and techniques, because the ummah has a lot of energy. Our ummah, the Muslim ummah, are young and our youth more than the other nations and races and nationalities and whatever you want to refer to them as. Yeah? Meaning, their populations are what? Aging. Why the Western world takes in immigrants and takes in all these young people? Because they need it. Their population is all extremely old. Their population is all retiring. They don't have children. And their birth rate in some countries is lower than their death rate, which means their population is shrinking. And they've said any civilization that reaches the birth rates that some of those countries has reached can never turn back. It's too late. Meaning they will vanish one day, they will not exist anymore. And they're already worried about that. So the only thing that they can do is bring in immigrants. That's why each of their countries has quotas each year. Hundreds of thousands they need to bring in. You think Germany brought Syrians in because they love Arabs? You think because they care about humanitarian this and that? Come on, give me a break. Maybe a few of them amongst their society do. But the reality is it's for their economy. They need it. They need the workforce. They wanted the labor. They want the young people to come and serve their old. Because they're old, they're all in retirement homes and hospitalized and whatever it is. They need these people to come and work and make the economy functional. So the reality is their hope is then these people will be indoctrinated and will become like them. Follow their religion, follow their culture after a generation or two and just become Germans and no longer really be Muslims or Arabs or any of that. Yeah? So we need to think creatively how we can improve our situation. In this context, modern concepts such as idea generation and problem solving can be of great benefit. So how many young people, when they're going through their studies or when they're thinking about their career, are thinking, how can I use this degree? How can I use this education? Or how can I use my career and my job to serve the ummah? Not just, is this degree going to earn me the most amount of money so I can get that big vacation home that I'm hoping I can have when I retire one day for my family to live a luxurious life? If this is the only vision you have, this is very narrow. How can you make yourself, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alameen. My whole life, even my death, all of it is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because I have a bigger purpose. And now you can even find these motivational gurus like Tony Robbins or any of them all talking about what? The only way the person can really be high functioning and really be motivated and really produce something is they have to have a purpose. They have to have a higher meaning beyond just I want to make money or I want to. Otherwise that doesn't last. It doesn't keep somebody moving in the right direction and it's not a healthy way. They will not be emotionally, spiritually balanced. We already know this from a long time ago. So we have to have a purpose and we have to see that our ummah is in need of us and I want to make my life, whether it's my education, my career, everything that I'm trying to contribute, greater than just I'm trying to earn this paycheck so I can pay my rent, so I can buy some food and pay some bills and then die one day and that's it. There's more to life, obviously, than that. Okay, the third lesson that he mentions here, so these 5 points we understand, talking about the matters of importance, the wajibat, avoiding the muharramat, doing those things which are sunnah and avoiding the makruh, enjoining good and forbidding the evil and focusing on excellence in our life and in our community, and then worrying about the welfare and the well-being of our ummah and the Muslims as a whole. C, or number 3, protection of the society. He says, Sheikh Zarabozo, Dr. Jamal Zarabozo, if you've heard of him, he's a convert to Islam in America. He wrote a very extensive explanation of the 40 hadith of Imam An-Nawawi. 2 large volumes, very extensive. He goes through things like the life and times of the narrators of these hadith, the authenticity of this hadith and what the scholars have said, and then goes through an explanation of certain terms and terminology, the Arabic words, then the lessons that can be learned. So a very good one if you want to go deeper and further into your study of these hadith. Dr. Jamal al-Badi pulls from it and used the research that Dr. Jamal Zarabozo already did, so he quotes him on different occasions. And this is one that's available in English, right? There are not so many great explanations in English, unfortunately, of these hadith. Sheikh Zarabozo mentions in his commentary that this hadith allows for the society to be protected from a great evil. Much of the harm inflicted within the society is due to people indulging in unnecessary matters like meddling in the affairs of others. Many of the problems that arise within the society today would be solved if this hadith were to be practiced. Right? How many relationship and marriage is destroyed because of this? Right? Not following the advice in this hadith. How many a partnership in a company or an organization is destroyed because of this? Right? How many even an Islamic project and good work failed or came to an end because of not following the advice in this hadith? Right? We have a curiosity naturally as human beings. We want to know. But a Muslim is someone who controls themselves and limits themselves and stops themselves at that which is not their business. Do I need to know what he said to she and why and where and how? It's not my business. I don't need to know. Unless it's my direct dependence and responsibility, unless I feel I'm going to be involved so that I can rectify the relationship and the situation and bring peace and bring the people back together. Otherwise, it's not my business, right? And many times when scholars talk about this issue, they talk then about what? The tongue. Because many Muslims can avoid doing the things that they shouldn't do, but somehow they think that the tongue isn't falling in that category. Even one of the Sahaba asked the Prophet ﷺ, when the Prophet ﷺ was saying that somebody will be accountable for their words, he said, O Messenger of Allah, we will be held accountable for what we say? As if we are thinking, I didn't punch anybody, I didn't murder, I didn't steal, I didn't hurt somebody physically, therefore I haven't done sins. Hey, wait a minute, what about what your words have done? Wars are started because of words. The Prophet ﷺ said somebody may say a word, they don't even give it a second thought, and that word will be the cause of them to plunge 70 years distance deep into the hellfire. That one word that they said, that one statement. Why? Because that statement could ruin somebody's life. With your word, you can destroy somebody. People commit suicide because of words that other people said. People get divorced, as we said, because of a statement that somebody else said. Relationships between parents and children or siblings or family members are destroyed over words. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always tells the believers what? He says, be careful about what you say. Why? Because that's what shaitan uses to come between. Yanzigh. Shaitan comes, he wants to poke, and he wants to prod, and he wants to incite. And he uses what as his way to get in? A word that you say. A word said with the wrong tone, a word said with multiple possible meanings. So shaitan will come to the other side and say, you know what he meant by that word. You know he wants this, you know he hates, you know this, you know that. And suddenly the other person is saying, yeah, I know. And then he returns back a word that's even worse. And then the other one says, wow, I was trying to be nice to him. Look at how he responded to me. And there, we go from there, right? No one giving the other one the benefit of the doubt and being so harsh against one another. And you can see this, as we said, even amongst people who are blood and family, people who are brothers and sisters in faith, and so on and so forth. So this hadith gives us that important rule. Remember your boundaries. Is it your business or not? If it's not, don't say anything. Easy. It has nothing to do with you. Don't talk about it. Don't forward that message on. You know WhatsApp now, what have they done recently? They limited how many people you can forward your message to. You noticed? How many people can you forward your message to in WhatsApp now? Only 5. You know why? Why did they pass this rule? Because people were killed recently because of WhatsApp messages being forwarded. Yeah? In India, for example, a man was beaten to death. Why? Because somebody receives, for example, video clip or a picture or a message. Sometimes they don't do any check. They just received it. As Allah said in the Quran, there were people who, when they received the gossip and the rumors and the lies, they didn't receive it with their ears, they received it with their tongue. Why? Because as soon as they received it, they spit it out and they went and told other people. They didn't process it, they didn't think about it, they didn't validate, they didn't verify, they didn't double check. Allah says in the Quran, if a fasiq, a sinner, comes to you with some news, what do? Do you go and tell everybody and broadcast it to the whole world? No. You double check. You make sure, you confirm, is there evidence? Is this confirmed? Is it true? How many a video clip or a picture we get, then later on someone is sending a message, oh sorry, I found out this was from 3 years ago. It was not from right now. Oh sorry, I said it was in this country. Turns out no, it was in another country. It had nothing to do with that thing. And some people have an agenda. They are sending this kind of thing on purpose, and then we become pawns and puppets in their game, and we forward it on, right? So WhatsApp had to block this. Why? Because people would get the message, send it to a few hundred, then those people who received it would send it out to a few hundred, and within seconds, it's reached to thousands of people. And this is mobilizing people. People are taking action based on that and coming onto the street and so on and so forth. And as we just mentioned in that case, which I saw on the news recently in India, the person got beaten to death mistakenly. He hadn't done anything. The people had sent that he had done and so on and so forth. And the people went and attacked him and killed him. And then WhatsApp is getting blamed for this as a platform. So they said, okay, if that's the case, then we better limit it. You can only forward to 5 people. Meaning, for it to get to thousands of people will take hours instead of seconds. But people are still there forwarding on. And it's a very, very dangerous thing, especially when it comes to religious matters, because how many a person forwards to me a hadith that has no basis whatsoever? Or points that they claim are religious things, they're all fabricated and made up. The religion never taught us this. What is this nonsense that people are sending? Where did they get it? Oh, I got it from so-and-so, so it must be trustworthy. Well, so-and-so thought the same thing as you. Didn't do any double check, didn't do any verification, didn't ask any scholar if these words are correct before I send it out to everybody else, and therefore just forwarded it on blindly. And the person before them did the same. And if you go back, once upon a time, there was somebody there with a good intention who didn't have any knowledge and just sent it out. So be very, very careful, right? It's enough of a sin and it's enough of a lie for you just to repeat everything that you hear. And just for you to forward on in our day and age, everything that you receive, right? Post it on Facebook, send it in social media and all this kind of stuff. Very dangerous. We better realize we are accountable for everything we send. We are accountable for everything we say. We are accountable for everything that we like, and so on and so forth. This hadith shows us many of the problems that arise within the society today would be solved if this hadith were to be practiced. This hadith shows us that Islam protects society in many different ways, including within its social fabric and mannerisms. Alhamdulillah, see, Islam is beyond the legal framework of secular law. Secular law busies itself only with certain crimes and punishments for those crimes. But they don't care about morals or manners. Right? They don't care about beliefs. They don't care about purification of the heart and soul. They don't care about emotional and psychological well-being and all these kind of things. Those you have to go to NGOs and you have to go to religion and you have to go to other areas to find anyone who's talking about that, right? Their social framework is only limited to certain crimes. But Islam, being a way of life, gives us guidance in all aspects, even how we deal with one another, even how we should speak and what we should not speak about, and so on and so forth. That's why we find it's a sin to backbite, right? It's a sin to gossip. Is there such a thing in the non-Muslim society? No, and that's why now they are suffering in their political system. Now we found that the elections in different countries, they're claiming have been manipulated using the social media, right? We know that how many of the lives of different people have been ruined. Why? Because there is a paparazzi culture of constantly following the celebrities and all these people and try to catch them in any scandal. A Muslim cannot be involved in such things. A Muslim cannot be a journalist or then pass on these kind of things, which is trying to expose the flaws and the faults of people who are in the public eye. A'udhu billah. Right? The Muslim is the one who's told, when you see a flaw from your brother, don't tell anybody about it. Conceal it for them. Allah will conceal your faults when? On the Day of Judgment, when you will need it. Because on the Day of Judgment is the day when your flaws will be exposed to everybody. Even the parents and the teachers and all the people you loved and respected will see about and know about your flaws. This is a day when everyone will be humiliated unless Allah saves and protects us. May Allah protect us. So how can you get that protection? By protecting others and concealing their flaws. You know about it, you saw it, pretend like you didn't see anything. You don't know anything. Don't go and tell other people about it. The most you should do is go to them and advise them not to do such things, and so on and so forth. We need to be concerned with the greater challenges that are facing our community. In this era of technology and communication revolution, many of us are being enslaved intellectually. We need to think and plan for our future generations, as we shall be answerable before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We need to apply and disseminate our knowledge and not just build reservoirs of knowledge. SubhanAllah, now, knowledge is more accessible than it's ever been before. Our great scholars of Islam, some of them would travel by foot. The destination takes months to get there, so they can validate one hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Now you can open a program like Al-Maktab Al-Shamila, it's called the Complete Library, and you can do a search in milliseconds. You can bring up and you can access hundreds of thousands of hadith and books. But who is doing it? Who's spending the time? How many scholars we have in our ummah? What's the level and quality and quantity of those scholars? Is it like at that time? No. No. Lacking. Majorly lacking. Right? So even though the knowledge is so much, we have reservoirs of knowledge, but nobody's benefiting from that knowledge, right? Most people don't know how to access or filter that knowledge because it became also an information overload. Now you go to Google, if Google is your sheikh or your teacher, it's a catastrophe. You do that Google search, and then what pops up? Websites made by anti-Islamic groups, pretending to be Muslims. And somebody saying, oh, I read on this website. Yeah, brother, this website was made by non-Muslims who want to push people away from Islam. Don't be misguided and fooled by what nonsense they put there. It's a website made by deviant groups like Shia and other groups, and the person is saying, oh, but I read this and I read that. Oh, brother, you're reading from the wrong source, and so on and so forth. So the information is there, but this technology and access to information is a double-edged sword. You can get to so much information in an easy way, but you really have to know how to filter it. You really have to have some of those basic tools. We need to design our future and not just stand passively to let others design and impose their preconceived scenarios upon us. An example of how this can be done is through dialogues and talks. Those in authority, such as our scholars and community leaders, have a great responsibility in carrying out these tasks. We need to plan. We need to be proactive. When you look at other groups, religious groups or minority groups in the world, some of them, like the Jewish community, for example, if you look back at their history not that long ago, were extremely weak and persecuted in the world. But they got together and they planned, and of course their planning is not nice planning, they plotted, and they worked hard, and they made the plan not for 1 year, not for one generation. They knew it's going to take time and generations to fulfill, but they worked hard. And they were loyal to each other, and they were loyal to their plan, and they executed their plan, and now look what they are doing. 6-7 million in the world, and they are controlling so much. They control the financial system, they control the media, they are pulling the strings of some of the biggest countries in the world politically with this tiny number of people. How? Is it because they're so much smarter than other races and other religions of people? No, of course not. They worked hard, they put plans, and they worked. How many of us are planning for our future? Do we see something will be better for our children and grandchildren? Or we're just seeing that the thing will keep on declining and we don't know, we don't care, and we just hope that we can try to pass through this life with as little headache as possible, and then good luck to the future generations. It cannot be like that. We have to be making some plans. How can we improve our situation, the situation of our youth, intellectually, financially, and so on and so forth. Yeah? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us part of the solution and not part of the problem. Fearless, fearless. Alhamdulillah. Okay, and the last point that they make here, and then we will end inshallah. Point D, point 4, hadith on excellence in adab. Here in the commentary of this hadith, they mention how this, along with a few other hadiths from this collection, they are really the sort of pillars on what does it mean to have excellent manners, excellent etiquette. How is it that you can be categorized as that Muslim? Because we said part of perfecting your Islam, right? Somebody who prays and goes for Hajj and does many good acts of worship, but for example, doesn't have good manners, doesn't have good morals, we cannot say he's a complete Muslim. This person has a problem actually in their iman, has a problem in their religion, because Islam is a total package, right? Allah says, enter into submission completely. So even if you gave a lot of charity and you did a lot of good acts of worship, but then you are vulgar in speech, you treat the people wrong way, you do a lot of gossiping and backbiting and so on and so forth, we would say your religion has a question mark, has a big problem, right? So some people, they only focus on one aspect at the expense of the other, and then many other people in society, especially those who are more secular or non-Muslims, they will say the only thing that really matters are your manners. Are you a nice person? Are you polite? Are you good to people? Are you merciful? Are you this? Are you that? But they don't really care at all about the rights of Allah. They don't care about worship. They don't care about belief in the hereafter and accountability and so on and so forth. Right? So both of these need to come together in Islam to make a complete or a perfect Muslim. Right? And we will never be perfect, but we're always striving to be better and better. So Ibn Rajab, he quotes Al-Imam Ibn Abi Zayd Al-Qayrawani. This is a great scholar who was from Tunisia, North Africa. He's from the Berber, the non-Arab people that live in that area originally before the Arab Muslims had brought Islam to that land. He was a great scholar. He passed away in 386 after the Hijrah, so over 1,000 years ago. Yeah? So Imam Ibn Rajab, when he gave his famous commentary on these hadith, he quoted this other Imam in stating that this hadith is among the most important in setting the precedence for good manners and behavior, and that this is among 4 ahadith in this realm, which are all included in this collection of 42 hadith. Right? So the first one is this hadith number 12. Part of the perfection of someone's Islam is his leaving alone that which does not concern him. The next one is the next hadith number 13. None of you truly believes until he wishes for his brother what he wishes for himself. Imagine what kind of world we will live in if we always wish for the others what we wish for ourselves. We don't have jealousy, we don't have hatred, we don't envy, we don't wish they have less, we don't wish they suffer. We want them to have the same as us or even better. And number 3, hadith 15, let him who believes in Allah and the last day either say something good or keep silent. It's a golden rule. If you want to speak, say something good. Otherwise, shut up, be quiet, keep your mouth shut. That will be best for you and for everybody else. And number 4, hadith number 16. These are all hadith we will come to and explain in more detail. Do not become angry. The Prophet ﷺ's advice to a man when he was asking for advice, don't get angry. Why? Because anger is something which allows you to do so many wrong things. You say things you regret, you do things you regret, you harm others and so on, all in a fit of rage when you may lose control. So these are some of the beautiful ahadith that guide us how to be the best Muslim, in especially our dealings with other people. The conclusion from this hadith, we should keep ourselves busy with matters that are of benefit to us, our community, and to the ummah. We should condition ourselves so as not to waste our time and effort in matters that are of no concern to us. We also need to create awareness among each other regarding the issues and challenges that the ummah faces and how to help it. This hadith also gives important lessons in conduct and behavior, which goes forth to protecting the society at large. Alhamdulillah, we are Muslims and Allah blessed us with this complete way of life. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us deep understanding and make us from those who follow what we know and what we learn and to practice what we preach. Jazakumullahu khairan. Any questions, any comments, any corrections, any concerns? It can be about this topic or about something else. Is it clear? Or it wasn't clear at all? It's one of the two. Yes, sister. I don't know if there's any microphone. Otherwise, maybe you can just raise your voice a little bit. I should be able to hear you, inshallah. Oh, you have one there already. Okay.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I am one of those who receives messages.
Okay.
Sometimes when I read it, because my knowledge is not that deep,
Yeah.
the message is good, but I'm not sure if it's authentic. And at the last part, they'll always say something like, if you want to do your part to be a good Muslim, to help, so please pass this along, so that we'll be blessed by Allah. That puts me in a very difficult situation because I feel that I daren't pass it on because I've received a lot of those that I don't believe in. At the same time, I don't want to be wrong for not passing it on. And these messages sometimes quote verses in the Quran. Should I do?
Okay, very good question. So the sister says she received many messages, but you don't always know for sure whether what's in that is perfect and authentic and accurate and so on. And in the message, they will make some statement at the end. You must pass this on, you should, if you love Allah, if you're a good Muslim, so on and so forth, right? And they make you feel guilty, actually. So, number one, we should not put those statements in our message. If you truly love Allah, then you will forward this on, as if you don't love Allah, then it means you didn't forward it on. No. This is not an appropriate way to deal with people. You are trying to intimidate them and hold them hostage that they must forward on. The reality is, as the sister said, we get bombarded with so many messages that it almost will become counterproductive. Right? People will become annoyed and bothered. And by what? By Islamic reminders. The Prophet ﷺ, he used to choose the time to remind his Sahaba when and how often and for how long. Why? So that they would not get bored, they would not get bothered, and so on and so forth. And these are the Sahaba of the Prophet ﷺ, right? So to say we should be giving reminders all the time, we should be giving constant bombardment of reminders, this is not the Islamic way. It will lose its effect. It will not be a very effective thing. So when somebody sends to me 10 messages in a day, I don't look at them anymore. I don't have time. I cannot spend my whole life on social media. And some people even ask me, brother, did you read all the messages I sent you? A'udhu billah, brother, what do you think? My life is I'm a secretary for you and for all the people who are sending me messages. I just sit down and read those messages and I cannot do anything else in my life. It cannot be like that. Especially when now we have hundreds or thousands of contacts and they all add you in these platforms and then they want to bombard you. I myself removed myself from Facebook and all these things just because of how time consuming it is and how much I didn't see it to be that very beneficial. Although you can use it for da'wah and so on, but it can suck you in and waste your time and then people hold you accountable. Did you see this thing? Why you didn't like this one? Why you didn't? Akhi, what? You are paying me to give you my time to focus only on you and all your messages. I cannot do that. I have a job, I have a family, I have da'wah, I have a life. I cannot do it. So we should not feel obligated to read anybody's messages or to forward on anybody's messages. Now, you want to do da'wah for the sake of Allah, you have a list of people you send things to. I do that. I have my contacts, I forward to them. I don't do it daily. I don't bombard them all the time with so many messages even in one day. I send every once in a while. Then people respond to me that they actually read it, they're actually interested, and I only send the thing that impacted me, I liked it, I felt it's a good reminder, and so on and so forth. Right? So try to pick and choose what you will forward on. Don't just send everything. Number one. Number two, when you send that which you are certain is valid and authentic. People quoting Quranic verses and hadith is not enough. Because there's also a way to interpret, translate, understand those ayat and ahadith. So usually someone will bring an ayah or hadith, then there's a message where somebody wrote what they think it means or what lesson they think we should get from it. Now, is that understanding correct or not? Because not everyone who quotes Quran and Sunnah has a good intention in doing so. Or not everyone who does has enough knowledge to then interpret them correctly. So I am responsible for what I forward on. If I'm not certain about this meaning, if I'm not certain about the authenticity of this hadith and the message, I don't send it. That's safe. You sending it on means you'll be accountable for what you sent. You passed it on. And the people will trust it because it came from you and they trust you. So you don't send it if you have even a little bit of doubt. You want to double check? Contact people who are knowledgeable, ask them, validate, verify, and then only then send it on once you are certain. Otherwise, you are under no obligation to send anything on. Right? People threatening us with these messages, you don't truly love Allah, you didn't forward my message. What is this? Who are you? You are the Prophet ﷺ that I have to forward on your words like that? No. And many people's messages, they write so much from their own. It's not the Prophet ﷺ's words, it's not Allah's words. They maybe bring one ayah and then they write paragraphs and paragraphs or points and points and so on. So I think we can take the matter easy. We don't have to feel guilty. We don't have to feel like people are holding us hostage, right? and trying to force us to do that. Use these platforms for good, use them for the sake of Allah, but use them wisely and only send on what you are certain about and what you have knowledge about based on your studies and what you've learned from trustworthy teachers, inshallah. Yeah, Allah knows best. But that's a great question. I think it's something that all of us struggle with, actually, right? Because we receive so many messages, we feel we should send a lot of them on. I would say pick and choose what you send. And remember, you're accountable for it. What you sent in writing, it's like you just spoke those words. Just like you're accountable for what you speak, you're accountable for what you write or what you type. Yeah? May Allah help us. Yes, brother. Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, the brother is saying we watch the news, we see a lot of what's happening in Middle East or Muslim countries and so on, and you are saying how do we know if that's authentic information? Yeah. So I think, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, if a fasiq comes to you with information, you have to validate, verify, double check. And these news agencies actually in many cases fall under that category. Why? Because many of them are owned by non-Muslims, and they even are owned by people who have agendas. So now in many countries, like in the United States, for example, certain channels are already labeled as, this is the right-wing Republican channel, so they have an agenda. Meaning the media they bring it with a certain bias, they bring it with a certain twist. And then there's the left-wing media, they're bringing it also with their own political bias and view and so on. Because every journalist can do what they call putting a spin on the story. When you put a spin on the story, it means you can make it look like the victim is the bad guy, and the bad guy is the victim. You can make it look like the criminal is the hero, and the hero is the criminal, and so on. So it's all about the optics, it's all about the words that you use, it's all about the way you want to twist the story to seem like this or like that. So media is used by politics, by corporations, by all those who have certain agendas, and they are benefiting from the status quo, right? So they will use the media actually to manipulate us. So we need to have our own Islamic filter there to say, I cannot just blindly accept and believe everything that I'm seeing in the media. Yes, a lot of it is going to be based on a valid incident. Was there an attack? Was there an explosion? Yes, there was. But what are the exact details of it? We may never know. We may never know. So we shouldn't be so brainwashed by what we watch in the media. The other thing you can see in any of those main media stations that are focusing on news 24 hours a day, they will bring only a few stories that are going on. And there are thousands and hundreds of things that are going on in the world. They just choose 2 or 3 and they recycle those and they focus on them because this is the one they want to really burn into people's mind for one reason or another. Or because they think it's going to get them the most views, the most clicks, the most sales and advertising revenue, right? It's also a business. So they want to look for what is most sensational. So we need to balance it out, because if you look only at that very negative feed all the time, it can be very detrimental to our psyche, to our mentality, to our spirit, right? Because it's just all bloodshed, it's all very negative, it's all hateful, it's all... So we start to feel that there's no good people left, there's no good things going on in the world, there's no... So you need to balance that out with the reality. There are many good things happening, even in those countries that they are trying to highlight that there are bad things and so on and so forth. You will find that there are good people on the ground who are making a difference, who care, who are doing the good things. So we should not allow ourselves, and especially our young people, children and the youth, they can get very damaged by getting this as a constant feed. Negativity, killing, hatred, blood. And then as if they think this is the norm. Right? You can see even for young people, their video games are based on that. Right? Their cartoons are based on that. It's all about killing and defeating and beating and this and that. What is this, yahi? So when you bombard a human being with this all the time, it's going to have an effect on their soul, actually. It's going to have an effect on their emotions and on their psyche and mentality. So we need to be careful and I would say limit or reduce the input of this kind of stuff, and maybe also try to look for alternate sources of news and information. Now the bottom line for me is, okay, I'm seeing all this, I know about all that, so what is my duty? Because some people just want to watch the news every day, but then the news has zero impact on their life. Right? So they don't, for example, feel more grateful to Allah because they see the horrible thing that's going on in that country, and they thank Allah, at least in my place where I am, Allah has blessed us with safety and security. Allah has blessed us with abundance. We are not starving. We are not dying from some drought. We are not going through this and that you can see in the media. This is a reaction that should occur as a result of seeing that. Am I making dua for the people that I'm seeing that are suffering? Am I giving my money to help them? Am I using the skills and the talents and the energy and the ability Allah gave me to improve and do something about that situation? Right? Do I realize that as a Muslim, I'm contributing to that situation directly or indirectly? Every time I sin as a Muslim, I'm hurting the ummah, the whole ummah. All Muslims are being harmed by my sinning. Right? I cannot say, oh, my sinning will only affect Muslims in Kuala Lumpur. No, it doesn't work like that. This is one body, one ummah. So Allah brings the calamity on the ummah because of how the ummah is behaving. And even if there are boundaries drawn there by colonial white people in Sykes-Picot's convention, it doesn't matter what names they gave to our country and what fake lines they drew between us. We are one ummah, so Allah treats us as one ummah. So when we do good, the benefit comes to the whole ummah. When we do bad, the harm comes down on the whole ummah. So I have to think in that way. Then I start to realize my actions have an impact. Just because I'm thousands of miles away doesn't mean that I'm not harming or helping them somehow. So I need to improve myself. I need to do good for Allah. And then I need to think bigger. My career, my education, my money, my life, how is it helping the ummah and not just my children or my family or my personal wealth and accumulation and fortune or whatever it is. Does that make sense? So the news needs to have that kind of impact on us. Because for some people, the news is just depressing and demotivating, and that's it. No, it should have the reverse effect for a Muslim. It should be, oh my God, the situation is so bad, I need to do more. I need to take action. There's an urgency there that I feel I have to contribute, I have to help, I have to make the world and the situation of the Muslims better. Allah knows best. Any other questions or comments? Okay, then we'll end there inshallah. There's a request here for a dua, so we will make dua for one of our jama'ah who has passed away. Brother Muhammad Noordeen, he passed away on Saturday, the 23rd of February. He was the father of Dr. Azwa and father-in-law of Dr. Surya. And he went to Hajj in 2017 with Al-Khadim. Is that what it's saying? Oh, okay. Okay. So Dr. Azwa and Dr. Surya went to Hajj with Al-Khadim and with you all in 2017. Okay. So let's make a dua. I will make it in Arabic if you don't mind, and you can say Ameen. Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. Ya Allah, Ya Rabb, Ya Dhal Jalali wal Ikram, Ya Hayyu, Ya Qayyum. برحمتك نستغيث أصلح لنا شأننا كله ولا تكلنا إلى أنفسنا طرفة عين. يا واحد يا أحد يا صمد الذي لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات. اللهم رد المسلمين إلى دينك ردا جميلا. اللهم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك. اللهم يا مصرف القلوب صرف قلوبنا على طاعتك. اللهم اغفر وارحم وعافي واعف عن أخونا محمد نور دين. اللهم اغفر له وارحمه. اللهم تغمده بواسع رحمتك. اللهم ثبته عند السؤال. اللهم اجعل قبره روضة من رياض الجنة ولا تجعله حفرة من حفر النيران. اللهم ثبته عند السؤال. اللهم اغفر له وارحمه. اللهم اسكنه فسيح جناتك. اللهم اجعله من أهل جنة الفردوس الأعلى. اللهم يسر له في قبره ويسر له يوم القيامة واجعله من أهل جنة الفردوس الأعلى. اللهم اغفر له وارحمه. اللهم اغفر له وارحمه. يا رحيم يا غفور يا ودود يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. اللهم تجاوز عن سيئاته. اللهم تجاوز عن سيئاته. اللهم تجاوز عن سيئاته واغفر له وارحمه يا رب العالمين. اللهم ارزق أهله الصبر والسلوان، اللهم ثبتهم وأعنهم واجعلهم من أهل جنة الفردوس الأعلى. اللهم اغفر لنا وارحمنا جميعا وثبتنا على صراطك المستقيم وارزقنا حسن الخاتمة يا غفور يا ودود يا رب العالمين. والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله، وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.